Discover for spine-chilling Halloween horrors revealed. Sinister tales of the cursed and haunted. Emily paused, the knife poised over the pumpkin's vine-rimmed grin, heart racing as darkness settled into the corners of Maplewood. The children giggled behind her, but something eerie pricked at the edges of her awareness. The breezy rustle in the trees didn't sound like wind, it was like whispers, a chorus of secrets lurking, uninvited, just beyond the porch light's reach. Halloween was supposed to be sweet, filled with candy and laughter, but as she carved deeper, the shadows shifted, drawing closer. In the days leading to the festival, the air grew thick with anticipation, but also dread. Neighbors buzzed with Halloween plans, while Emily's thoughts twisted around the financial worries creeping into their lives. She forced a smile for Lily and Max, determined to make it special, even though frayed nerves and fading light left her uneasy. After the kids were tucked in, she would hear those whispers again, the soft rustling that crawled deeper into her bones, beckoning her. Just the wind, she kept repeating like a risky mantra. Yet, the sensation of being watched nagged at her. People in town had been talking fables of things that wandered in the night, stories of Mr. Hollister, the neighbor with the oddly inviting smile. He had taught in the local school decades ago, but whispers of his past sent shivers down spines. How many children had he lost? Were they still out there, hidden within the veil of Maplewood? For her, they were shadows flickering in her peripheral vision, present but unacknowledged. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But on Halloween night, her resolve shattered. The children giggled with delight, racing toward the flickering lights of their friends' houses. Wait here, Emily had said, panic pricking at her skin as she watched them go. Minutes passed, but her heart never stopped screaming. Where were they? Each door she knocked on brought nothing but polite smiles and fading hopes. Anger and dread mingled together. When she arrived at Mr. Hollister's door, his smile felt like a knife in her gut. The warm light spilled out, but it wasn't welcoming, it was a trap. Her instincts flared, a deep-rooted knowledge that something was off. Come in and look for them, he said, but Emily hesitated, the air thick with unsaid things. Each second ticked ominously as memories churned, echoing laughter taunting her. A chilling reminder of the stories she tried to ignore. Outside, their laughter echoed like distant chimes, leading her feet toward the edge of the cemetery nearby. The moon cast long fingers of shadows across gravestones, black and cold. Something hidden was calling her name, but as she stepped into the gloom, a realization gripped her heart tighter than any worry ever had. Where were her kids? She clenched her fists, ready to dive into the darkness. A darkness that hinted at long-buried secrets, promises of vanished innocence. As she stepped into a world where no one sleeps, she braced herself for the next horror waiting to creep out from the depths of Maplewood. Would she dare enter? The whispers grew louder, clawing at the edges of her sanity. As the path ahead loomed dark and murky, an invitation to a nightmare she couldn't ignore. The air thickened, stifling her breath as Emily stepped into the cemetery. The distance chilled her skin. Every grave she passed felt like an open mouth whispering her name. The laughter of children echoed familiar yet distorted, creating a dissonance that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand tall. Fear surged through her, mixing with desperate hope, spurring her onward. Max! Lily! Her voice pierced the silence, trembling under the weight of dread. No answer came, only the rustling of dead leaves that sounded too human. She barely noticed the shifting shadows darting between gravestones, keeping watch, their forms flickering as her pulse quickened. The moon bathed everything in a ghastly light, illuminating cracked stones that appeared to leer at her. A gust of wind whispered through the branches, carrying a chilling melody that sent shivers racing down her spine. Help us! It was faint, a call that was both mournful and sinister. Caught between instinct and hesitation, she turned toward the source, her heart pounding a nervous drum against her ribs. The ground cracked underfoot, sending echoes that vibrated through the darkness. She stumbled into a clearing, where an ancient oak stood, twisted and gnarled like fingers reaching for the sky. Beneath it, nestled among the roots, was a small, worn doll. Its glassy eyes reflected the moon's light, drawing her closer. Knots formed in her stomach as a sense of foreboding crept in. Forgotten lives clung to this relic. "Mommy?" A faint voice, like the rustle of leaves, seemed to rise from the depths of the earth. Emily's heart nearly stopped. Was it her imagination? She spun around, fear clawing at her throat. "Lily! Max!" The quietude clung to her like a shroud, heavy and suffocating. A shadow shifted behind the tree, a silhouette so sudden it made her gasp. She turned, frantic, but there was only the swirling mist, curling back into shadows. The laughter again, this time louder, mocking her. It reverberated in her ears, making her stumble. "Come play," it beckoned, sweet and sinister alike. Instinct blaring, she sprinted back through the headstones, panic igniting her speed. The laughter faded, leaving her in a haunting quiet. "No, no, where are you?" she cried, the words escaping in jagged breaths. Suddenly, behind her, came the unmistakable sound of small feet racing through the grass, light, eager. Relief washed over her, but just as quickly, dread returned. Those were not her children's footsteps. They were something else, something chasing, something hungry for laughter. She whirled again, scanning the shadows. "Max! Lily!" The cemetery was a labyrinth now, each turn growing more twisted, more alien. The air buzzed around her, electric and alive. Something watched, a predatory presence. It filled every shadow, bending and twisting reality into confusion. As she turned to retreat, Emily froze. There, at the edge of the clearing, stood Mr. Hollister. But something was wrong, his smile wider, teeth gleaming like a predator's in the night. The warmth of his voice turned icy. "You've come searching for them, haven't you?" His words dripped with a sinister understanding, reaching into the core of her fear. "Join them, they're just around the corner," he taunted, gesturing toward the consuming shadows. Panic coursed through her veins. Her heart thundered with realization she was now part of the whispers she once tried to ignore. In that moment, the chilling truth gripped her. There was no escape, not anymore. Emily turned to run, but the shadows sang, wrapping around her feet like tendrils. She could feel the pull, hear the fading laughter as she was drawn deeper into the darkness. But as she fell, a new whisper broke through, the command of a child's voice, strong, defiant. "We're here, Mommy. This way." And just like that, a glimmer of hope sparked. Would she follow the call or succumb to the terror clawing at her mind? The darkness tightened its hold, both an invitation and a warning, as Emily plunged into the depths of Maplewood, chasing the source of her children's laughter, knowing that what awaited her could change everything. Emily plunged into the darkness, her heart racing as she sprinted toward the children's voice. The laughter spiraled, beckoning her deeper into the cemetery's heart. As she moved, she felt the shadows clawing at her ankles, tugging her back with a cold insistence. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the very ground beneath her wished to reclaim her, to fuse her with the silence. "Where are you?" she shouted again, voice trembling, swallowed by the oppressive air. The laughter cascaded around her, rising and falling like a cruel melody. But there, just ahead, flickered a glimmer of movement, two small forms darting between the headstones. Hope flared within her, warm and vivid against the chill that enveloped her. "Max! Lily!" she cried, determination spurring her onward. The fog thickened, swirling with an unnatural pulse. Images danced in her periphery, a woman in white, a spectral figure, her eyes black pits of despair. Emily blinked and it vanished, but fear crawled back into her chest like a rat seeking a nest. The laughter echoed again, this time sounding too joyful, too near, tinged sharp with something sinister. She reached a towering mausoleum, its stone face weathered and cracked like a grizzled old man caught in eternal sorrow. A gust of wind erupted, and the door creaked wide, revealing a darkness more profound than the night itself. "Come play with us," the tiny voices called, now at her feet. Emily hesitated, the hunger in their laughter pricking her skin, sending shivers racing down her spine. She edged closer, drawn in by the promise of her children. But the shadows shifted around her, dark laughter bubbling up, sounding less like delight and more like a trap closing in. Her breath hitched as she stood shocked, grappling with the reality surrounding her. Suddenly, the shadows unraveled, revealing rows of faces, pale and twisted. They pressed against the walls of the mausoleum, mouths stretched wide in a silent scream. Ghostly figures of other lost children. Emily recoiled, dread knitting her stomach tight. "Mommy, this way," Lily's voice echoed again, sweeter. But there was an edge it felt insidious now, a wretched allure. With her heart pounding, and her own instincts screaming at her, Emily took one step toward the entrance of the mausoleum. The air thickened as she crossed the threshold, a foul aroma wrapping around her throat, choking her. Inside, the walls seemed to pulse, breathing with a life of their own. The laughter, now cacophonous, echoed from every corner. Shadows flitted between obscured alcoves, glimpses of small feet darting away from her grasp. "Come on, Mommy," they called again, just beyond her reach. She pushed deeper into the stench and darkness, desperately seeking the source, the warmth of her children. "Where are you?" The ache in her chest threatened to collapse her as she stumbled through the shadows. Then she saw them, flickers of light dancing on the stone, their silhouettes flitting around a pedestal with an ancient, dust-covered urn. The sight sent a jolt through her, a deep, instinctual fear whispered to run. "Join us," the voices sang, almost silent now, the sweetness morphing into something harsh that scraped against her eardrums. Emily froze. It wasn't her children, they were not just ahead. They were trapped here, just like the others. The reality crashed in, her pulse racing. The twisted shapes of the children grew around her, as if the shadows thickened, enveloping her in a shroud of clawing fingers. "Mommy!" A cry split through the air that shattered the facade. Was it genuine, or was it the shadows playing with her? She needed to break free. Fear drank in her heart like poison. With a jolt of clarity, she turned back to the exit. She could feel the growing press of shadowy figures closing in. But they laughed as she sprinted, the sounds rising in mocking crescendos. One last glance back, and she saw the faces transforming her children, twisted, merging into the looming figures of despair. Just as she reached the entrance, an icy grip closed around her wrist, sending ice through her bones. Before she could scream, she twisted, yanking her arm free, but not before catching the gaze of Mr. Hollister. His grin now a void of malevolent darkness. "Join them, Emily," he hissed. And as she burst into the cool night air, one thought struck her, a chilling promise buried within the shadows. They will always be with you. But now, she knew she was not alone. Something followed, only inches behind her, whispering in a voice she once thought familiar. Would she outrun it, or would the past finally reclaim her? Emily ran. The cool air felt sharp against her flushed skin, but it was nothing compared to the ghostly breath that lingered just behind her. With each stride, she pushed through the trees, desperate for the safety of the path that snaked through the cemetery. But the laughter, that sickly sweet sound, trailed her like a hunting hound, relentless and mocking. "Mommy!" The voices rang out again, but this time they twisted into an echoing taunt. "Where are you going?" Her heart pounded in her ears. Shadows reached for her, clawing at her ankles, eager to pull her back into that suffocating darkness. She shook her head, forcing herself to keep moving. Where were Max and Lily? Had they already succumbed to this malevolence? Ahead, she spotted the iron gate that marked the cemetery's exit, its ancient hinges rusted and creaky. Hope surged within her, but it felt far too fragile in a world overrun by darkness. With every step, the cold, creeping dread wrapped tighter around her like a noose. Just as she neared the gate, the air cracked like thunder. A figure materialized before her, blocking her path. It was the woman in white, her face an expression of eternal sorrow, those dark, empty eyes piercing through Emily's resolve. "Leave this place," the specter warned, voice hollow, echoing the terror of lost souls. "You cannot take them. They belong here. Get out of my way," Emily cried, feeling fury bubble amid her fear. The woman only smiled, a grim twist of her lips that spoke more of malice than benevolence. The echoes of the children's laughter intensified, chaotic and bombastic, as if mocking her defiance. The shadows twisted and formed phantasms resembling her children, their faces contorted in wrongness mocking her, playing with her mind. "Mommy, we're just playing," they sang, false innocence dripping from their voices. "Let them go," she begged, her hands trembling. Desperation clawed at her chest as she imagined their familiar faces warped by this cursed place. The specter raised a hand, and the ground trembled beneath her. "You must make a choice, child. They are tied to this earth, as you will be if you linger." Emily's breath hitched. A choice? All she wanted was to save her children. A sick knot of hopelessness twisted inside her. "How?" she gasped, looking into those hollow eyes, seeking any glimmer of redemption. The woman leaned forward. "One must stay to take their place, or you must leave and they will remain." The specter's voice turned into their laughter again, shattering the strength she fought so hard to cling to. Emily's mind raced. She couldn't leave them behind, but the thought of joining them, of becoming one of those twisted souls, terror enveloped her. "Mommy, come play. Stop it. Stop. Please," she screamed, battling the rising hysteria that clawed at her sanity. Just then, a flicker of light drew her gaze. Max and Lily. They stood not far from the gate, their shadows flickering, their smiles vibrant yet wrong. Emily felt a rush of love collide with sheer horror. The woman in white laughed softly, weaving around her like mist. "You have only moments. Choose wisely." With the weight of the world pressing down on her, Emily was faced with the impossible. Stay and save her children, or flee and abandon them in this twisted realm. "Mommy," they called again, reaching for her, a haunting desperation in their eyes that felt all too real. A struggle brewed within her, each heartbeat a testament to her choices. She took a step toward the gate, breathless, teetering on the brink of a decision that could doom them all. And then, from deep within the shadows, a familiar voice whispered just above the lilt of their laughter. "Mommy, don't go." The air around her thickened, squeezing the hope from her lungs. That voice, it wasn't just laughter. It was a plea, a warning. She turned back to them, her own heart screaming. And as darkness swirled, engulfing her in a cacophony of screams and laughter, she finally understood. There was no running. Emily inhaled sharply, clenching her fists, resolved to confront the horrors surrounding her. But was there enough time? Suddenly, the ground beneath her shook violently as if the cemetery were alive, and she fell to her knees, panic flooding her thoughts. The past was a cruel shadow, but this moment was all-consuming. Would she find her way back to her children, or would she become just another story whispered between the stones of despair? And that when she heard it, the door to the mausoleum behind her creaked open once more. "Would you like to join us?" What awaited her beyond the threshold? Emily's heart raced as she peered into the dark maw of the mausoleum. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and something deep within called out to her, a voice that curled around her thoughts like smoke. Emily, it was a whisper at first, but it became clearer, more insistent. "Join us." Something flickered within the shadows, and her instincts screamed at her to back away from the creeping darkness. But the urge to find her children, to understand their fate, drew her forward. The door creaked again, drawing her closer, the sound a haunting melody that whispered promises and threats in the same breath. She sensed movement inside, a dance of shapes that moved just beyond the threshold. They beckoned, their features lost in the gloom, their intentions unfathomable. "Mommy, come play." The voices echoed, stretching and twisting through the air. Her children's laughter came again, sweeter but tainted. "Stop!" Emily shouted, voice breaking as she clenched her fists. The shadows danced closer, suffocating her with memories of warmth and love before the transformation twisted them into grotesque parodies. "No, this isn't real," she shouted, trying to shake it off. But the darkness gripped her, chilling her to the bone. She stumbled backward, glancing over her shoulder at the woman in white. The spectre's eyes glimmered with a sorrowful hunger. "You must decide. Are you strong enough to face what you've left behind? Or will you embrace eternity?" Max and Lily appeared in her mind's eye again. The way they smiled, their gleeful giggles. Each moment replayed like a broken record, woven with strands of dread. Then came a crash from within the mausoleum, startling her into action. Flashes of light erupted as a frenzy of shadows broke free, swirling around Emily, scaling the stones that surrounded her. Tormented wails reverberated through the air, each one chilling her to the bone. The earth roared as if the cemetery itself raged against her presence. "Join us!" The whispers grew louder, a cacophony enveloping her. With trembling hands, she reached for the latch of the gate behind her, fear dancing in her chest. A pulse of warmth spread from her heart at the thought of escape. But suddenly, the ground beneath her betrayed her. Tendrils of darkness shot up, latching onto her ankles, clawing at her skin. A sickly grip pulled her back toward the mausoleum. "No!" she screamed, summoning every ounce of strength within her to break free. She faltered, struggling against the grasping hands, writhing, fighting with reckless abandon. "Mommy, help us!" The children's voices pierced through, sharper now, more frantic. Emily's legs finally broke free from the shadow's clutches, and she bolted toward the iron gate. But as she neared, Max and Lily appeared, their faces illuminated like beacons yet shadowed by despair. "Mommy!" they cried, reaching out with desperate hands. The pleading in their eyes drove her forward. She almost lunged toward them when the woman in white stepped between them. An impenetrable wall of sorrow ascended from the ground. "Leave this place. Let them go!" Emily shouted, rage igniting a fire within her. With a sweeping motion, the specter gestured and shadows writhed violently. Emily hesitated, the weight of choice barreling down on her once more. She caught Lily's eyes, filled with a fear so profound it twisted the blade deeper within her heart. "Mommy!" And in that fragile moment, Emily felt the rush of darkness at her back, heard the whispers elongate, constrict layering over her sense of reality. She shut her eyes, inhaling the scent of earth and decay, rallying around one last chance. What lay beyond the gate? Freedom or captivity? The earth trembled, rumbling like thunder as she made a choice. Emily gripped the iron gate, heart thundering like a drum, ready for what lay ahead. And just as the gate swung open, she heard the sweetest sound rise above the chaos, the sound of her children. "Please don't leave." Fear wrapped around her throat, a vice grip ready to snap. What awaited her on the other side? Would this choice seal their fates forever? Emily stumbled through the open gate, the weight of the mausoleum pressing against her back like 1,000 icy hands. The moment she crossed the threshold, the air shifted, the scent of decay faded, replaced by the cold bite of night. She was outside. She forced herself to turn back, but the gate slammed shut, sealing the dark whispers inside. Heart racing, she faced the empty graveyard, the moon casting eerie shadows over weathered tombstones. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by the rustle of leaves. Had she escaped, or was this but a prelude to something worse? "Max? Lily?" Her voice trembled, swallowed by the darkness. She scanned the shadows for any flicker of light or movement, grappling with the desperation clawing at her chest. Their laughter lingered in her mind, a sweet promise that twisted into a taunt. Then, she saw it, a flicker of light beyond a cluster of ancient oaks, drawing her in like a moth to flame. With each hesitant step, the grass crunched beneath her feet, a staccato beat keeping time with her quickening breaths. The flicker grew, glowing brighter, the shadows around it swirling almost playfully, teasing her senses. Suddenly, The teasing turned to a roar. Wind whipped around her, rustling the trees angrily, and the light pulsed as if alive. Emily's heart pounded. A scream clawed at her throat, but she swallowed it down. "Mommy!" A voice from the darkness silenced her fears. It was her children, but not quite. "Come here. We're waiting." She hesitated, dread filling her insides like ice. Were they truly here? She took another step, the light now mesmerizing. It felt warm, inviting, but something deep within her told her to proceed with caution. Her instincts were sound. "Stay back," she called out, fighting against the temptation to chase that glowing warmth. "Tell me where you are." The light flickered once more, dimming, and for a brief moment, she thought she saw their faces, contorted with fear, just beyond the reach of the shadows. "Mommy, we need you." The wind howled, and Emily felt a rush of icy air prickling her skin. She backed away, her legs trembling, fighting the pull of that haunting call. What if it wasn't them? What if it was a trap? Then she heard it, a guttural whisper clawing at her consciousness. "Join us forever." Emily clutched her head, squeezing her eyes shut. The world around her started to distort, the trees leaning closer, shadows elongating, mingling as if trying to ensnare her. In the chaos, she thought of her decision. Leaving the mausoleum hadn't been a victory. It felt more like running into an open maw. "Max! Lily!" she screamed, desperate to break through the illusions that threatened to suffocate her. The taunting laughter crashed like waves, drowning her cries. The light dimmed further, flickering as the darkness crept closer. She could feel the weight pressing down, trying to steal her breath, drawing her into that hellish embrace. With sheer force of will, she tore her gaze from the light. She turned, bolting away from the specters of her past and into the sprawling shadows of the cemetery. But where would she go? Would the monsters that haunted her be waiting? Each step sent tremors through the ground, and the whispers grew louder, echoing in her ears, calling to her return, but she focused on escape. The mausoleum held an answer. Maybe the woman in white could help her. Perhaps the darkness, though twisted and cruel, could yield a thread of truth. Just as she reached the stone wall where the mausoleum loomed, she paused, panting heavily. The chilling grip of fear tightened around her. What other horrors awaited her inside? Emily's finger hovered over the latch, heart pounding like a frantic drum. Did she dare reopen that door? And then she heard it, a soft, sweet voice cutting through the cacophony, a lullaby sung in tones that made her blood run cold. "Come cuddle, dear mommy." What horrors awaited her inside the mausoleum? Would the specters offer more comfort? Or was true terror just a heartbeat away? Emily's heart hammered in her chest, the weight of the night pressing down like iron. The soft lullaby echoed around her, weaving through the cemetery, seducing her with its promise of comfort. Yet the warmth it offered felt hollow, cold even. "Mommy!" The disembodied voice drifted towards her, sweet yet dripping with something sinister. With a shaky breath, she pushed against the mausoleum door, creaked a mournful song heavy with age. Panic clawed at her throat, but curiosity gnawed more fiercely. What lay inside? The answers? Or perhaps a deeper horror? As she entered, the air thickened, wrapping around her like a cloying fog. The interior was darker than she remembered, shadows pooling in corners, as if hiding from the light of her feeble flashlight. The faint smell of damp earth penetrated her senses, a reminder of what lay beneath. She flicked the switch. Nothing happened. No lights, no flickering bulbs, just darkness. "Max! Lily!" she called out, her voice trembling as it bounced back, twisted and taunting. It felt like an echo from another world. Taking a step inside, her foot fell on something soft. Bending down, she recoiled, nearly dropping the flashlight. A bouquet of wilted roses, blackened and decayed. The sight sent her stomach lurching, the sickly sweet scent filling her nostrils. Heart racing, she pressed forward, feeling the walls close in like a coffin, the air thick with dread. "What do you want?" she whispered, half to herself, half in confrontation with the shadows. She stepped further into the small corridor, its chill sinking deep into her bones. The walls were lined with niches, each containing a name engraved on stone. Names she recognized, families who had come to visit. And there, at the end of the hall, her breath caught in her throat. A flickering light emanated from the last niche, her children's names etched in the stone. Panic surged. What could it mean? She moved closer, her instincts screaming for her to turn back. But the light pulsed, drawing her in, whispering promises of reunion. "Mommy, right here." With a trembling hand, she reached for the light, trying to grasp the warmth radiating from the niche. Suddenly, the atmosphere changed. The laughter returned, teasing and hysterical. A cold breeze passed through the hall, snuffing the flicker momentarily. Shadows danced madly before it ignited once more. Illuminating presents a pair of worn teddy bears, their glassy eyes reflecting something ancient and wicked. "Why are you doing this?" Emily shouted, fighting tears as the taunting laughter morphed into shrieking agony. She turned to flee, but darkness wrapped around her, pulling her back into the murky depths of despair. Then a voice broke through the chaos, a harsh whisper that grazed her skin. "You can't leave, you brought them here, they need you to stay." The laughter shifted into wails of torment as images flashed in her mind, the children, their eyes wide in terror, hands reaching for her from the cold ground. Guilt surged, hot and suffocating. Why 1T, you just tell me what happened?" she cried out, desperation in her voice. The walls quivered, stone and shadow merging. A figure began to take shape, clad in white, with a face obscured, but her silent scream vibrated through the mausoleum as her hands raised, beckoning. Something cold touched Emily's arm, making her jolt. She spun, the light flickering wildly around her, the dark pressing closer as she stepped backward, her heart pounding in a frantic rhythm. Emily, the whisper carried a familiar tone, echoing her name like a lament. "You must join us." With a rush, she realized she had no choice. The walls began to blend, distorting into flesh-like curves. Echoes and whispers filled the air. "Mommy, come stay." And then, the ground trembled beneath her feet. The mausoleum shook, fissures opening like yawning mouths, ready to swallow her whole. Emily turned, sprinting toward the exit, but the specter in white loomed, stretching out a long finger toward her. "You can't run from your fate." A heavy darkness crashed around her, the laughter rising to a deafening crescendo. Would she escape this time? Or would the mausoleum claim her soul, forever entwined with the lost whispers of her children? As the walls closed in, Emily knew one truth: through darkness or light, she needed to confront what lay ahead, or lose herself to it entirely. Would she face the past, or would it face her? Emily burst through the mausoleum door, her lungs screaming for air, heart pounding like thunder in a storm. The night was eerily quiet, the graveyard now shrouded in a thick fog that clung to her skin, heavy and suffocating. She stumbled forward, glancing back just in time to see the flickering light inside vanish, swallowed by the yawning darkness. "Mommy, come stay." The voices lingered, echoing in her mind like a haunting and persistent chant. She stumbled over uneven ground, adrenaline surging through her veins as she raced toward the gate. But her feet felt heavy, weighted down by despair. The cemetery was transformed under the veil of fog, headstones looming like sentinels, watching her every move. There was something alive in the shadows, something that shifted and slithered, always just beyond her field of vision. She cast frantic glances behind her, half expecting to see the specter trailing her, whispering promises of what she had lost. "Max! Lily!" Emily's voice broke into a half-choked scream. Silence followed, cold and mocking. The only response came from the wind, which howled through the trees, swirling leaves and dirt around her. Rounding a crooked gravestone, she paused, hands braced against her knees, struggling to catch her breath. In the back of her mind, guilt knotted tighter. The children's faces flashed before her alive, smiling, then fading into terror, calling out to her in their last moments. "This is your fault." Felt suffocating. With renewed fear, she pressed on, desperate to escape, but instinctively drawn back to the truth that pulled at her heartstrings. She had to uncover what happened. She had to know. Suddenly, a sound shattered the silence, a soft, barely perceptible giggle. Her body stiffened. It was a child's laughter, sweet, innocent, yet tinged with something dreadful. She pivoted slowly, scanning the oppressive fog. Then she saw them, two shadowy figures hovering near an ancient oak. Her heart dropped as she recognized the shapes, the familiar outlines of her children, Max and Lily. "Mommy!" they cried in unison, their arms waving frantically, innocent faces painted with joy. But beneath their exteriors, she sensed a darkness, a taunting flicker in their eyes, as if they were not entirely themselves. "No, no," she whispered, shaking her head. Every instinct told her to run, to flee from this horror, but she was rooted to the spot. Emily took a trembling step forward, confusion twisting into anguish. "What do you want from me?" The children tilted their heads in perfect sync. "Join us, Mommy," their voices sang in harmony, a twisted lullaby that clawed at her sanity. Before she could respond, the ground trembled beneath her. The earth began to crack, dark tendrils of shadow snaking toward her from the fissures. They twisted and curled like fingers, eager to drag her down into the darkness. "Stay with us." The shadows stretched, slithering around her ankles like serpents. She could see now the once familiar faces were marred by something unnameable, their grins unsettling, teeth sharp and predatory. "Please, you're not my children," Emily screamed, horror crashing through her like icy water. Panic filled her lungs as she tore her gaze from their faces, scanning wildly for an escape. A heavy weight pinned her down, suffocating in the oppressive air. This horror was not just a spectral illusion. It was a manifestation of her guilt, her grief, twisting reality into a grotesque parody. With a sudden burst of will, she turned and ran, each footfall sending a ripple of fear coursing through her. The giggles followed her, echoing between the tombstones, growing louder and more manic as she stumbled through the cemetery. The mist thickened, wrapping around her like a choking blanket. Was this a dream? A punishment? The mausoleum-esque call still whispered in her ears. Emily, a voice, soft yet commanding, echoed from all directions. "You cannot escape your own soul." As she neared the gate, desperation surged. What awaited her outside, freedom or more horror? Just as she reached the wrought iron entrance, a chilling wind swept through the cemetery, slamming the gates shut with a deafening clang. Emily gasped, facing the darkness behind her. The laughter morphed into wails that clawed at her mind, urging her to return. She was caught, trapped between what she once loved and the darkness that sought to consume her. And then she saw it, a glimmer through the veil of shadow. A glimmer of hope, a portal back to the truth. Would she dare to step forward again? Or would the shadows claim her forever, dragging her back into the depth of her nightmares? Emily hesitated, her heart hammering in her chest. The glimmer pulsed, beckoning her like a distant star in an endless night. Was it the light of hope, or a trap set by the shadows that clung to her every breath? "Max? Lily?" she whispered into the void, half hoping for a response, half dreading it. The laughter died, leaving a heavy silence that felt almost worse than the shadows themselves. Resolute, she took a trembling step towards the shimmering light. The ground beneath her felt unstable, each step sending shocks of dread through her body. The shadows clung tighter, trying to drag her back, their whispers slithering around her neck. "Join us. Mommy, don't leave us, we need you." "Stop!" she screamed, voice tearing from her raw throat. The light didn't falter, but the shadows shrank back momentarily, as if stung. For that instant, Emily felt powerful. She took another step, the pulse of the glimmer growing stronger. Suddenly, from the depths of the cemetery, a chill swept through the air, cutting through her defiance. The mist coiled up, wrapping around her legs, spiraling like a shroud. Something solid emerged from the fog, a figure cloaked in darkness, yet its eyes burned bright with an unnatural fire. "Emily," it hissed, voice reverberating through the ground like a storm front collapsing. "Do you seek the truth? Or are you lost in your own despair?" Her breath caught, Who are you? The figure moved closer, revealing a face half hidden. But the grin was terrifyingly familiar, distorted, mocking. I am your guilt made flesh. You want to find them? You must dive deeper. Deeper? The weight of those words landed in her stomach like lead. I can't go back. Not ever. But you must. The figure leaned closer, breath icy as it surrounded her. To release them, you have to confront what lies beneath. Only then can you have your children back. The shadows writhed beneath her feet, whispering her worst fears. Emily could feel them prodding at her mind, replaying memories she wanted to forget: a car, laughter, the sudden crash. No, she moaned, shaking her head. But the figure's gaze bore into her, piercing through the layers of her guilt, forcing her to relive the moment. The glimmer of light shimmered again, but as she turned toward it, dark memories dragged her gaze back. You're not their savior, the figure taunted. You were the cause. You let them down. Tears streamed down her face, but she pushed them away. The ache in her heart threatened to rip her in two. I need to know the truth, she said, voice shaking but firm. What do I have to do? Follow the light. It will lead to your answers. With a wave of its hand, the figure dissipated into the mist, leaving Emily alone with the darkness. The shadows hissed, trying to pull her back, but she steeled herself and moved toward the glimmer. As she approached, she gasped. It wasn't just light, it was a place. A memory painted in colors she had buried deep within. Colors of her children before the accident, laughter echoing through time. Could she really face it? Could she stand there and watch the moment she failed? But the light called to her, promising truth, even if it broke her again. With a deep breath, she stepped forward, into the light, and darkness exploded around her. What memories awaited her? Would she find her children or merely the echo of their loss? Emily burst forward, propelled by a mixture of dread and determination, stepping into the luminous glow. Instantly, she was whisked away from the claustrophobic confines of the cemetery. Slipping through a barrier between realms, memories flickered like film frames, shaking her to the core. The light enveloped her, transformative and strange, transporting her back to happier times. She stood in a sun-drenched park, a gentle breeze rustling through bright, blooming flowers. Laughter danced in the air around her as she spotted Max and Lily, their faces radiant, shadows of the children she remembered before tragedy struck. Mommy, look at us. They ran toward her, their feet light as they darted across the grass, free and joyful. Tears welled in her eyes, then spilled over. Here, they were untouched. Here they were alive. But as she watched them play, a heaviness began to settle like a storm cloud overhead. She knew where this was leading, yet part of her screamed to cling to every second of their laughter. Come join us, Lily called, beaming with innocence. We're waiting for you. But Emily shook her head, dread pooling in her stomach. No, I can't stay. She knew all too well that this warm, inviting moment was a facade built on memories twisted by grief. The scene abruptly shifted. The park blurred, morphing into the cold steel of a car, the interior echoing with the laughter of her children, joy punctuated by a fleeting sense of normalcy. Emily felt the surge of fear swell within her, ripping through the slightest bliss she had felt. Suddenly, panic rose within her as the laughter shifted, darkening into piercing shrieks. Emily was transported to that fateful day. A deafening crash echoed around her, a shattering explosion of glass and metal. The memory of betrayal clenched hard in her chest like a vice. A car swerved. A flash of safety compromised an instant that changed everything. Guilt crushed her, boiling over into anxiety. Rushing forward, she lunged to shield her children. No, don't go. But nothing could change the past. There they were, dark shadows now straining toward her amidst broken glass, cries of terror piercing the enchanted memory. Help us, Mommy! Their faces twisted into ghastly reflections of their former selves, a horrifying reminder of all she lost. Suddenly, she gasped, pulling away. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Her voice betrayed the raw pain splintering her heart. These echoes were the children she could save if only she could bear to face this horror. The light pulsed, beckoned her to understand. Face it, it hissed. Understand what happened. Only then can you free them. Her breath quickened, racing as she felt something shift deep within her. I can't lose them again. The words poured out in desperation, but they hung heavy in the air, laden with regret. Mommy! The gasps intermingled softly with the faint echoes of sorrow. It twisted her heart. A choice must exist somewhere. She was not just a bystander of fate. She had to accept her role. Summoning her courage, she pushed past the horror swirling around her because she remembered, though buried deep, that love had power. I'm here, she shouted, voice raw but defiant. I'm so sorry for what happened. I never meant to hurt you. The world around her flickered again, turning vibrant as the darkness receded. The wails merged into soft cries of understanding. Mommy, don't leave us, never, she responded, wrapping her arms tightly around her children. Their familiar warmth surged against the frigid weight of despair as light poured around them, melting the shadows that had haunted her. With the memory still fresh, Emily focused on the radiance surrounding them. Tell me how to free you. Confront your sorrow. Max smiled gently, and Lily nodded, cheeks glistening. No more hiding. We love you. No matter what. She nodded, tears flowing freely down her cheeks. I love you too, and I will bring you home. In that resolute moment, the weight of guilt loosened, transforming into strength. The shadows around them melted away, and with a blinding light illuminating the path, Emily took hold of her children's hands. Together, they stepped toward the warmth, into the larger light beyond horror. She felt free, unburdened by loss. Knowing their connection would never disappear, love would weave through the darkness, lighting the way home. As they crossed through, she could sense a shift, reality converging upon them. Laughter rang out genuine and whole, free from torment. United once and for all, Emily felt completion wash over her, a promise fulfilled. Suddenly, the cemetery lay before them once more, but everything felt different. The air lighter, the whispering shadows quieted, and the oppressive weight lifted. Had they truly escaped? Mommy? They looked up at her, grins radiating familiarity and innocence. And as Emily embraced them, a powerful wave surged through her. Peace had returned. We're home. I will never leave you again. Tears flowed anew, but this time, they held joy, hope alive in her heart. What darkness had sought to claim her now felt distant, a whisper of the past without hold. Together, hand in hand, they stepped through the gates of Maplewood, hearts united, forever stronger, forever together. They were free. Now, if you want to keep hearing more stories like this, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm and help bring more people into this amazing community. Flood the comments with your thoughts on the ending. I want to know your theories and reactions. And hey, don't forget to share this video with at least 5 friends who have to see this conclusion. Your support means everything. Let us keep this storytelling journey alive.